Okay, we're here, we're live, let's get into it. California's Assembly Bill 88, what this is, why it's wrong. So the way that I would normally structure a video like this is I would just intro into it, but we're doing this live. I'm going to have the discussion about what this bill actually covers, and then we're going to open it up for questions. At that point, we'll get into it, and it'll just be a live chat. This will be live. If you are not watching this live, I apologize, but it just is how it is. So let's get into it. Before I get going, though, I do want to say thank you to a couple Patreon members. You guys are really the best. I appreciate everything. I want to say thank you to Lafayette, Rusty, who actually I met the other day, which was super cool, David, and Joe. I really appreciate all your guys' support. It means the world to me. So California Assembly Bill 88, what it is. So this is a statement from the Firearms Policy Coalition that I actually want to read to you guys. So it amends a budget bill to sneakily introduce language expanding the definition of an assault weapon. This bill would also expedite the ban on firearm precursor parts from 2025 to 2022. California's AB88 is the state's underhanded attempt to enact new gun control under the table. Should this legislation pass, the state would force you to register even more of your firearms as assault weapons, or basically go to jail. Now, what's more, CA-AB88 would give you even less time to purchase your firearm precursor parts, which there's been some debate whether this includes things like barrels and stocks, but it appears as if Firearms Policy Coalition is under the impression that it does. The anti-gunners are hoping to steamroll this anti-bill through the legislation without you even knowing about it, and we cannot let them get away. So at this point, I want to actually discuss real quick. So basically what this is doing, AB88, they're tacking onto a budget bill language that would ban your other firearms, like the Franklin Armory Title I. This is the ban that I've talked about previously on this channel, and I just wanted to kind of get it out there that this is how they're actually doing it. This is the avenue that they're choosing to go. They're going to be naming those others as assault weapons. Now let's read some of the actual bill text. I'm going to, let's see, we'll switch over to YT tutorial. So if it's right here, section 16 and 17 in the intro. So I'll leave this link down below in the comments, or if anyone else can find it and leave it down in the comments once this is good. But just, you can go to California Legislative Information, you do bill search, and then AB88, it should show up. I did a Control F to find assault weapon where it's listed. It's right here. But 16, you also want to pay attention to. Not many people are talking about this one. This is the firearms precursor parts. It says, under existing law, a licensed firearm. Under existing law, a licensed firearms dealer or licensed ammunition vendor is automatically deemed a licensed firearm precursor part vendor beginning July 1st, 2023, if they comply with specified requirements. Existing law beginning July 1st, 2024 requires the sale of firearm precursor parts to be conducted by or processed through a licensed firearm precursor part vendor and prohibits the sale of firearm precursor parts to a person under 21 years of age beginning July 1st. 2024, existing law requires a person or business to have valid firearm vendor licenses and whatnot, and 30-day period exempt as accepted. Under existing law, a violation of these provisions is a misdemeanor. Existing law beginning July 1st, 2025 requires the Department of Justice to electronically approve the purchase or transfer of a firearm precursor parts through a vendor. Beginning July 1st, 2025, existing law requires a vendor to submit records of sales and transfers of firearm precursor, basically a registry and a DROS system for selling any firearm part. This bill would instead automatically deem a licensed firearms dealer or licensed ammunition vendor to be a licensed precursor. Basically, okay, so it's moving it from 2025 to 2022. This is part of how the DROS system was getting more money in the state budget that would allow them to act this faster. I'm going to talk about the specifics of this in a second, but I first want to cover 17. So here is the part about the assault weapons. And it's basically saying that a firearm like a Franklin Armory Other, a firearm that is not a rifle, pistol, or a shotgun. Okay, so this bill would provide an exception to the... This bill would expand the definition of assault weapon to include a semi-automatic firearm that is not a rifle, pistol, or shotgun that either does not have a fixed magazine but has any of the attributes currently associated with assault weapons as specified, that has a fixed magazine with the capacity to accept more than 10 rounds, or that has an overall length of less than 30 inches. They've combined, and I've talked about this in a previous video, but if we skip down, we'll see later in a sec what it specifically talks about. But it basically makes your other firearms that were legal prior illegal. And I'm sorry if I'm not reading the chat. I am just going to, I'll read the chat in a second once we get through this. Part that's nobody else is really talking about is existing law authorizes the Department of Justice to provide an option for joint registration of an assault weapon owned by family members residing in the same household. This bill would prohibit the registration of assault weapon that is not a rifle, pistol, or shotgun. That seems like not a big deal, right? But the issue, this is actually pretty big. If you are married and you live in the same home as your wife or spouse or partner, you cannot joint register that gun, meaning that they can never have access to it without you being around. So if that was your home defense gun, a registered assault weapon, you can't let your spouse be around that gun if it's not in your control or in a locked container. And that's ridiculous. This fact that they're going out of their way to carve out this so that you can't joint register, I think is truly ridiculous. Like, they're just picking hairs at this point. Okay, here it is. So, a semi-automatic centerfire firearm that is not a rifle, pistol, or a shotgun that does not have a fixed magazine but has any of the following: a pistol grip, a thumbhole stock, a folding or telescoping stock, a grenade launcher or a flare launcher, a flash suppressor, a forward pistol grip, a threaded barrel capable of accepting a flash suppressor, forward hand grip, or a silencer, a second hand grip, a shroud that is attached to or partially a complete, basically a barrel shroud, the capacity to accept a detachable magazine at some location outside of the pistol grip, a semi-automatic centerfire firearm that is not a rifle, pistol, or shotgun that has a fixed magazine. So basically, if you were to make a other and then put a fixed magazine on it, which I don't know why you would, or if you had some sort of weird other firearm that had a fixed magazine, that would be a no-go. A semi-automatic centerfire firearm that is not a rifle, pistol, or shotgun with an overall length of less than 30 inches. Okay, actually, here we go.
That the governor proposed
is this
in the May revision
audio
and
loud
with
enough
the
for you guys?
And so under this trailer bill, the state would be obligated, the administration would be obligated to identify a first prison for closure by January 10th of next year, 2021, and a second prison for closure by January 10th of 2022. And then the process would continue to move forward after that. This is, of course, assuming current trends hold, but it is the plan to close 2 state-owned prisons over the multi-year forecast period. So that's one major element of this bill. This bill also includes a what's often known as ban the box, but a provision for post-secondary institutions like colleges regarding whether they can inquire about criminal history of any of their applicants during the application process. It also includes a number of other provisions, including expanding the ability for remote court appearances, and also with regard to parole, which I know has been another big item of discussion with the legislature, establishing a new maximum term for parole for most offenders coming from state prison. Happy to take any questions.
Questions, members? Senator Nielsen.
Let me just tell Mr. Vishwanathan I'm going to be very actively opposing the proposal.
Thank you for sharing, sir. Senator Melendez.
Thank you. I have a question about what appears is in this bill, which should be a policy bill, and that is regarding the banning of a new class of firearm. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that, because it's my understanding, I don't know that this firearm is even available in California at this point.
Yes, Senator Melendez, let me turn that over to my colleague. It's going to be either Aaron Edwards or Clint Kellum. So let me turn it over to Clint Kellum, and then he may turn it over to Aaron to offer
yeah,
details
Melissa.
on that question for the firearms regulations in this bill.
Hi, Clint Kellum, Department of Finance. Yeah, actually, Aaron Edwards is the appropriate person to discuss this component.
Hi, Aaron Edwards with the Department of Finance. Thank you, Senator, for that question. So the language is designed to close what is currently a loophole in state law. There are a class of firearms that do not fall neatly into one of the existing categories for firearms that are that we are able to regulate under state law, which are rifles, shotguns, and pistols. These are a relatively new type of firearm. I can't speak to the availability currently in the state, but it is, in our view, a loophole that needs to be closed because these weapons are similar to assault weapons and can pose a significant threat to public safety. And so that is why we've included this language in our trailer bill to close that loophole as soon as possible.
Okay, well, I certainly understand we have a difference in opinion on ideology here, but this is a policy matter. This isn't a budget matter, so why is it in this trailer bill? This is a brand new policy.
So, sure. So happy to speak to that. The reason that it's in the trailer bill is because there is funding in this budget for the Department of Justice to develop and enforce these regulatory these new regulatory measures on these firearms, and so there is a nexus to the budget.
Senator Nielsen, followed by Senator Roth.
Madam Chair, I do have to follow up on this. When I found out about this last night, I was very offended and angry. Too often now, major policy is slipped into the budget, and that's exactly what you're trying to do here. I find your reasoning very deficient. Even from the standpoint of the arrogance to say, well, this is something that we just want to do, and it's dangerous, and I don't even agree with that. But the point is circumventing the legislative process. This is reprehensible. And my signal to the Department of Finance and the Horseshoe is this is not the way to do business with the legislature. Just because you can get away with it, maybe, and get the votes, it's a great disservice to
It's
the people of
under my
California
impression I might be able to
who
make some
don't
sort
know
of
about
public
these
comment.
games being played in the dark of night.
Senator Roth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Finance, I'm not going to give you a lecture about policy and budget bills because having been here 8 years, it seems that if we like the policy, it's okay, and if we don't, it's not. But when the administration does engage in policy initiatives through the budget process in budget committee hearings, I do think it's appropriate to treat it like a policy committee and a policy discussion and provide a little bit more detail on the policy issues, and I have an issue with that coming up a little later in the agenda. But on this particular issue, I'd like someone to explain to me exactly what these weapons are, and referring to them as similar to assault weapons, frankly doesn't cut it for me. So this is a policy issue. You're asking us to vote on it. Someone step up and tell me what exactly this is, because I tried to figure it out myself the other night. Any takers?
Finance.
I'll turn it over back to Aaron Edwards.
So, Senator, I think we might have to get back to you in terms of the specific details. The way the language I think is crafted is to basically define technical aspects of the firearm, and so it really gets down to, I think, some fairly technical details about how the firearm is designed, and I think I would need to get back to you with those specific details because I don't want to speak out of turn in terms of not having all the very specific nuances of the language.
So should we just put this trailer bill on the shelf until you can explain it?
Hey, this is Vivek Viswanathan. We'll definitely get back with those details, but we do believe, I do want to clarify that we do believe, I know there may be a difference of opinion here, but we do believe that this is important to implementing, as my colleague mentioned, the DOJ provisions related to regulation of firearms. This is a priority for the administration. It's a priority for many members of the legislature. So we will get back to you on these specific provisions. They can be highly technical in terms of how these weapons are defined. In fact, it's often the loopholes in these definitions that drive the proliferation of these weapons in the first place. So we'll make sure to circle back on those details, but we do believe this is important not only in its own right, but in terms of implementing the budget package.
But you understand my point, do you not, Mr. Viswanathan? You're asking us to vote today on the promise that you're going to get back tomorrow after the vote with some explanation. I'm okay with that when we're dealing with numbers. I am not okay with it when we're dealing with policy. And someone needs to get the message downstairs that if you're going to insert policy into a budget, whether it's a budget or a trailer bill, you or someone better be on the line to explain the policy to those of us who like to read and appreciate knowing what we're going to vote on when we vote on it. Now, I'm inclined to vote on this trailer bill, but I want to know what I'm voting on when I cast my ballot. So, word to the wise. I don't always agree with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle on this or other issues, but I think you need to pay attention when you and the governor and the administration are inserting policy, raw policy, untethered to any single line item in the budget in a trailer bill. Now, I'll close my mouth and let us go on.
Senator Roth, I think it's fair to assume that all of us want to know the content of what we vote on. So with that, Mr. Viswanathan and I would have to insist that you or the appropriate person in your department, get back to us before we take this item up on the floor tomorrow. And we'll be sure to have Senate budget staff coordinate with you this evening to talk about timing. Senator Bell?
Thank you very much. I wanted to talk about the prison closure and then the elderly parole and compassionate release. I'm very concerned that we have three, is my understanding, 3 facilities that have a high proportion of the COVID-19 cases in our California prison system.
Okay, so from my understanding, I wouldn't be able to do it on the live just because of the timing of it. The public comment period seems like it's going to be much later. So I'm not going to be able to do that on live stream, but the fact that they covered all this was incredible. I'm very glad that they did it the way that they did. And I'm stoked on that. I'm glad that they basically had no answer for what it is. The guy didn't even know what it was he was trying to ban, which to me, if you're gonna ban something, understand what it is. I simply don't get it. I don't understand why they think they can get away with just doing these sneaky little things. It's just absolutely ridiculous to me. Well, I think I know I get it. It's because they've been able to get away with it in the past. Damn. I'm very glad that that guy, the Democrat representative, spoke his mind like that. That's super cool to me. I'm glad he did it. Man, I'm very surprised. I was not expecting any support from any sort of Democrat in the state. But yeah, okay. I think at this point, if anyone doesn't have any last questions, I think I'm going to hop off. This was basically everything that I wanted to cover. So yeah, if you want to watch this stream back, you can. I think I'm going to edit out the section from the intro to the start of AB88. So if you have any questions, let me know. As always, you guys know the drill though. Something, safety doing it. Omar said, Reno, you need to run, bro. Get in that room. I don't know. I'd probably get canceled because of something I said on Modern Warfare 2 Xbox Live. But if you guys have any questions, you know the drill. As always, have